Good day and welcome to Frontline News. I'm Cody Ann Barrett. Coming up in the newscast, political commentator, Gleaner columnist, and university administrator Martin Henry and the former chairman of RGR and Methodist minister Reverend C. Evans Bailey has died. More tributes to former Prime Minister Edward Seaga. Priority attention being given to the case of the policeman who reportedly shot and killed his wife. 2 men are in custody following robbery attempt in the Spalding Market in Clarendon. SOE curbing crime and violence in Westmoreland. A Clarendon man has been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment at hard labor for trafficking persons. In the region, the Bahamas Directors Union threatens strike action. On the international scene, U.S. Special Counsel Robert Mueller makes his first public comments on his investigation. We also have our business and sports packages in this newscast. Now for the news in detail. Political commentator, Gleaner columnist, and university administrator Martin Henry is dead. Mr. Henry collapsed moments after he left the studios of Television Jamaica's primetime news Tuesday night, where he praised former Prime Minister Edward Seaga. He was rushed to the Medical Associates Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Mr. Henry, a Morant Bay High School graduate, was the Gleaner's longest-serving columnist, writing commentary for the newspaper for more than 30 years. His passing has come as a shock to his colleagues. Mr. Henry was 61 years old and is survived by his wife and 3 children. Former chairman of RGR and Methodist minister Reverend C. Evans Bailey has died. In a media statement issued by the RGR Gleaner Group, it said, quote, "The board of directors, management, and staff of the RGR Gleaner Communications Group are saddened by the death of a former chairman of Radio Jamaica Limited, Reverend C. Evans Bailey. Reverend Bailey was the 3rd chairman of RGR and succeeded Peter Abrahams in that job on July 8, 1980. He served for almost 14 years until March 31, 1994, when he demitted office. He was succeeded by J.A. Lester Spalding as chairman. Known for his mild, thoughtful manner, Reverend Bailey became the chairman of RGR only a few weeks after being first appointed to the board. His steady leadership was appreciated by all. For more than a decade, he was unwell and out of the public glare, but his contribution to RGR was not and will not be forgotten. The board, management, and staff express our sympathies to his family at this time of bereavement." End quote. Tributes and words of praise continue to flow for former Prime Minister of Jamaica Edward Seaga. Former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson has also paid tribute to Mr. Seaga, who passed away on Tuesday. In his tribute, Mr. Patterson, who retired from active politics in 2006, made a note of Mr. Seaga's leadership, emphasizing that Mr. Seaga, quote, "leaves behind an indelible impact on the political evolution of Jamaica and its social and economic development." End quote.
In pursuit of his huge and varied portfolio responsibilities, he was entrusted with the task of completing the matrix of institutional building that was essential for the modern nation-state. He set out to preserve and promote our rich cultural legacy while spawning new modules far and wide for our island's development. Edward Seaga, to the very end, was blessed with the mental acuity to maintain his attention span for sports, music, and the learning process which had influenced the path of his earlier life.
Edward George Philip Seaga has represented the Kingston Western constituency for over 40 years. Since the news of his death, residents of the constituency have been reacting. A celebration was also held in his honor on his 89th birthday. Let's take a look.
We're here in the Tivoli Gardens community. It's a buzz. You might hear the music behind me. That's because there's a celebration that's been set up for the late Edward Seaga, who passed today sometime about 1:30. But with us is a lady who knew him very well. Her name is, they refer to her as Miss Pinnis. Her name is Miss Clark. And Miss Clark is going to tell us a little bit about her relationship with Mr. Edward George Siaga. Miss Penis, how are you today?
I'm fine. Only have a little pain in the knee. But other from that, I'm all right.
The man who you knew very well, the Member of Parliament, Edward George Siaga, who was Member of Parliament for 43 years, I believe. He passed on today. You knew him very well. What does that mean to you?
Mean it's like a what? Like I'm not here.
His death. What does his death mean?
Dead?
He died, yes.
When?
Oh, you didn't know that he died?
No, sir. When him dead?
He died today.
At the first me I hear. We never hear so see I go dead. Boy, I really miss him. Yes, man. And I'm Billy. Make me comfortable. And Billy make me comfortable. Otherwise, uncomfortable. But some man to be in PMP, we don't know nobody never say back a what could have been turn in a housing scheme. And him always help the people them. Yeah, man, deal with them nice. Best MP ever come here. See I go, yes.
You actually was one of those persons who fought very long and hard to make sure that he came to this constituency.
Yes, but Belmont, when we scattered around with that and gone, I organized a couple of us. I've got to Belmont for them balls so we wanted Siago, we want Siago, we want Siago. And make beer nice and excitement. So then couldn't take with so them have to give us Siago.
But you threw stones and you carried on and they locked you up.
Me?
Yes.
Me do 8 months of detention camp for politics. And God knows. Was turned up on the bench and cuss PMP and everything. So me was a active person when it come on to them things, you know. For 8 months to do a red fence with Babs again. And so, but me never pay ease up in the politics when me young. All God knows, man, go make nice, them have to expand me. I couldn't be, must not to be seen on Duke Street. Yes, we could go from, we could have further, we could go a unit hall. Couldn't pass, go down no further.
How much do you know about Mr. Siaga?
The last coming up, where before Mr. Eddie come out of the party, I was there. And I danced the whole entire night, Chakamolan, up there. And I there here, and I was here when Mr. Eddie used to carry things, go give the old people them in a Tivoli Garden. And I hear till them put me on to work with a lady and the tour we go and collect money. I never get no sleeping. But anyway, Mr. Eddie have anything, Janice Sinclair, it's there.
How do you feel about his death today?
He shook me up very much, because he's my father. God believe it, he's my father. But I'm not a long speaker. And God go with you. I'm still here.
I don't know just what to do.
Now that was in the early days when you used to record music with one microphone. And it was done in the studios of RJR.
Sir, what do they call in the community?
Them call me Crouch in my community.
Tell me this. Did you know the man personally?
I know him personally, my second father.
Tell us about the relationship, the closeness you have.
The close relationship I have with Mr. Siaga. Once when the first I know him, when he was coming up Wellington Street, greeting and meeting people, shaking hands. And I said to myself as a little boy, this white man, where I'm coming from? I never know nothing about politics. Right? And then 1962 election come up and he win. The people them live in a poor condition, very, very poor. And he keep a meeting at the corner of Wellington Street and Dunford Street. And the first thing he ask the people them, what they want. And it come in like the people them plan, I don't know why. But these hundreds of people, all them say, oh sir, oh. See? And
House came?
And the house came. Because we live in a poor condition up in Denham Town. Very, very poor. And he built this community. And I follow him from Chocomoland, which joined Victor's Youth Club.
For you, what's the most memorable thing for you?
For me, it's a lot. I go up on death row. Innocently. Sentence to hang, go at the gallows 3 times, and get a state execution, do life sentence. get parole, I am here. Get us and come here, done the parole and all that. I there here 26 years now. And that man helped me with a house here that I can live, a roof. And I love that man. Very good Prime Minister.
My heart is very full. I'm very sad. I've lost a friend, I've lost a mentor, I've lost a father. I've lost someone who believed in me, someone who was my inspiration, someone who I knew was sincere. You don't find many sincere people around. And when you're in politics, those who are sincere get less and less. I found somebody who believed in me. I found someone who saw in me what others didn't and would not even have entertained the idea of giving me a second look.
Give me nothing to do but roll around heaven all day.
The University of Technology UTech has also expressed regret at Mr. Siaga's passing. Mr. Siaga was appointed Chancellor of the university in 2010 and was serving in that capacity when he died. UTech President Professor Stephen Vassiani says Mr. Siaga will be missed as he was a major source of inspiration and a guide to the leadership of the university.
He was instrumental in our annual meetings and lent his wealth of experience and expertise to all aspects of the university's work.
Mr. Siaga also served as Senior Research Fellow at the University of the West Indies following his retirement from representational politics in 2005. Meanwhile, communications expert and public commentator Claude Robinson has praised Mr. Siaga for his contribution to democratic institutions. We get more in this report from Nicola Brown.
Public commentator Claude Robinson highlighted that Mr. Siaga was a dominant political force to reckon with and was never one to back down from his political views. He argued that despite this reality, Mr. Siaga showed political maturity after the 1983 general election, which was boycotted by the People's National Party and which led to the Jamaica Labour Party gaining control of the House of Representatives. Mr. Robinson acknowledged that despite this advantage, Mr. Siaga restrained himself in the House for the benefit of the country.
Many people feared that he would use the opportunity to ram through things and to turn the country in a non-democratic way. And to his great credit, and one of his lasting contributions to the country, is that he actually went out of his way to try to create a Senate with opposition persons, to involve Michael Manley in budget activities and in things like appointments, because as you know, some of the appointments in the Constitution require the advice and consent of both the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition. And he allowed and treated Michael Manley as the leader of the opposition as if he had a constitutional role. So I think that to me, at this point, is his lasting contribution.
He also praised Mr. Siaga's view of his own capabilities and the strength of his political convictions, and highlighted how this impacted the JLP.
He was so convinced of the rightness of what he was setting out to do, and that it could only be done by him. And he was a man who sought to get things done. And so I was not surprised that he held on to the leadership for so long. And remember, the JLP under Siaga was determined or seen in terms of the strength of the leader. And a strong leader does not give in. And so he would not give in to all the other people who wanted his job.
Nicola Brown, Frontline News.
And the region has also paid tribute. More in this report from Peter Gay Charlton.
Regional leaders are among those remembering Mr. Siaga. Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, highlighted his contribution to Jamaica and the region.
On behalf of the government and people of Barbados, I extend sincere condolences to all of his family and to all of Jamaica. Mr. Siaga's career reflects a man that appreciated the critical importance of the development of institutions and infrastructure, especially as you set out to build a new nation. He will forever be remembered for this clear commitment to building these institutions and infrastructure, not just in Jamaica, but across the entire Caribbean.
And in a statement, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, said the Caribbean has lost a son and the people of Jamaica have lost a servant. He said Mr. Seaga was a leader who contributed to the continuous evolution of Jamaica. Prime Minister Brown said Mr. Seaga is best remembered in the Eastern Caribbean for his role in ending the Grenada debacle in October 1983. He said this occurred when the regional security system led a mission to seize the carnage that was taking place in the country. Peter Gay Charlton, Frontline News.
Head of the St. Mary Police Division, Superintendent Bobette Morgan, said that priority attention is being given to the case of the policeman who reportedly shot and killed his wife. The incident took place Tuesday at the couple's home in Jamaica Beach Tower Isle, where 45-year-old Janet Hardy Lawrence was shot and killed by her husband. A relative of Mrs. Lawrence reported that the couple was having problems. The policeman remains in custody. 2 men are in custody following a foiled robbery attempt in the Spalding Market in Clarendon. The names of the men have not yet been disclosed. Reports are that the men tried to rob a woman of her car keys and a purse at gunpoint. It's not clear how the police were alerted, but the men were arrested after they were chased by the lawmen. A firearm was seized in the process. The state of public emergency SOE that was declared in Westmoreland in April is curbing crime and violence in the parish. Mayor of Savannah Lamar, Councillor Bertel Moore, in an interview, said that based on the information he received, the security measure is working. On April 30, Prime Minister Andrew Holness declared a state of public emergency in St. James, Hanover, and Westmoreland. On May 7, the House of Representatives approved the extension of the SOE by 90 days. Councillor Bertel Moore said that while some business persons were concerned about the early closing hours, they are satisfied with the implementation of the SOE and are more comfortable conducting business with the increased presence of the security forces. Mr. Moore also stressed that feedback from citizens in the parish indicated that they feel much safer with the SOE in effect. He noted that members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force were carrying out operations to reduce the amount of crowded areas in the parish and to ensure that vendors are selling in the designated areas. The SOE gave the security forces temporary additional powers, including powers of search, arrest, and detention. Throughout the SOE, the security forces have the power to search, curtail operating hours of business, restrict access to places, and detain persons without a warrant. A Clarendon man has been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment at hard labor for trafficking persons and 3 years imprisonment at hard labor for having sexual intercourse with a person under 16 years. The sentence is to run concurrently, which means he will serve a total of 5 years. The victim was 13 years old at the time of the incident. Sentencing was handed down in the circuit court last Friday after Aston Alcock pleaded guilty to the offences on April 3. Evidence was led in court that in January 2015, the mother of the teen girl, who is of a Kingston address, reported her missing to the Denham Town Police. A probe was launched. Ongoing investigations revealed that the teenager was persuaded by a stranger to another parish where she was being sexually exploited. That April, the 13-year-old met a police officer who questioned her and was able to reunite her with her mother. Further investigations led to Mr. Alcock being arrested in Central Village, St. Catherine, in August. The 3 persons accused of defrauding the Ministry of Education of $23 million appeared before the St. Andrew Parish Court on Tuesday, where the case against them was mentioned. Jenny Williams tells us more.
31-year-old Jermaine Saunders, a salary clerk employed to the Ministry of Education, 31-year-old Delroy Elliott, a teacher of Cheapside, Manchester, and 35-year-old Ruel Young, a teacher of Rock River in Clarendon, were charged earlier this month following a probe by the fraud squad into an alleged scam. Prosecutors on Tuesday reported that the case file was not yet completed. They also outlined the allegations, which were strongly opposed by attorney Oswest Senior Smith, who is representing Mr. Elliott. Investigators reported that between June 2017 and August of last year, Mr. Young and Mr. Elliott were overpaid more than $23 million. It is alleged that Mr. Saunders, who was the salary clerk for both teachers, subsequently requested the return of some of the money. It is reported that the funds were paid to him by way of cash and bank transfers. He, however, failed to turn over the funds to the Education Ministry. Fraud Squad investigators were called in after an internal audit uncovered the alleged scam. The three men turned themselves in between May 7 and 9, after which they were charged with conspiracy and simple larceny. On Tuesday, they were offered bail in the sum of $400,000, ordered to surrender their travel documents, and report to the police twice weekly. They are to return to court on September 10. Janae Williams, Frontline News.
The parliamentary opposition is making an urgent call for the establishment of a task force to inspect the state of the Universal Access Fund, USF, which has suffered a plunge in revenue. More in this report from Janae Williams.
During his sectoral presentation in the House of Representatives, opposition spokesman on technology Julian Robinson stated his concern that over the past 4 fiscal years, the fund's revenues have fallen by more than 57%. He said that another area of concern is that of the Universal Service Fund, which is spending more than it is earning. Mr. Robinson is worried that the entity's revenues may dry up in another 5 years. He believes that a task force will provide crucial answers on the future of the USF and will include whether the fund has been meeting its objectives.
2. In what ways have the ICT needs of the population changed over the last 14 years? And is the USF the best vehicle through which these needs should be met? 3rd, does the focus of the USF need to change in order to reflect the current and future needs of the nation's underserved communities? 4, given the current income trajectory of the fund, what are the revenue projections for the next 5 years? And finally, what are the possible alternatives for revenue generation available to continue the viability of the fund? Mr. Speaker, the end result we are trying to arrive at is simple. We need to make an informed determination around whether the purpose for which USF was initially created has been met.
The Universal Service Fund earns revenue from a levy imposed on international calls, terminating on local networks. A decline in voice calls has resulted in fall of revenue. Janae Williams, Frontline News.
Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie said that a new homeless shelter will be built on King Street this year. The new shelter will serve the vulnerable in the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew and will cost $120 million. Mr. McKenzie stated that the facility will cater to more than 300 Jamaicans who are living on the streets and lacking proper care.
When this facility is constructed, Mr. Speaker, it will become a modern drop-in facility, the first of its kind to be built in this part of the world, Mr. Speaker. We are not only providing this physical space for the care of our homeless, Mr. Speaker, but this year, $30 million will be provided to the drop-in centers for nutritional support, Mr. Speaker. So we're not just putting down these facilities and leave them just like that, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. McKenzie added that the designs have been completed and the works have already been put to tender. Garbage collectors are to receive a 28% salary increase come July 1. The increase was announced by Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie during his sectoral presentation Tuesday. He said the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, is also 70% compliant with current statutory requirements and life insurance. The government minister also revealed that nearly 80% of all disposal site workers, sidemen, and drivers have been vaccinated. We now take our first break. We'll be right back.